Recording in progress.
Cool. You just let me know if you can actually see the screen there. I'm sharing my screen with my slide deck. All right, cool. Make sure we're all good there. Right. Again, as a reminder, we are recording this to make it available for members who can't attend in person. Again, I'm John Stacy with GAMA. For those who don't know me, I'm Executive Director here, and just want to share a couple quick updates and then open up for questions from members. I'm going to wait a couple minutes, give people a chance to get into the call. We've got a small group this week, which is fine. Again, I say we're recording it, so we'll be sharing information with members. All right. So if anybody's out there, just let me know, because otherwise just me talking to myself, and that's no fun. Hey, Dan, good to see you again.
Just trying to turn off my settings from my last meeting.
That's fine. It's all good. I appreciate you being here last week and being back in this week. All right. Okay. Where's my view here so I can see my screen here? Oops, there we go. I don't need my there. All right, cool. All right. Well, that's been a couple minutes. I'll get started then. Respect everybody's time. All right. So it's been kind of a busy week. There's been a number of things happening on the tariffs front. Up first, just kind of share the kind of things we're going to talk about this week. A couple of things. Obviously there's been some movement on some of the president's efforts for his trade arrangements. Deals is a misnomer, but that's the word that he's using. Talk about a couple of those that have happened this week. Some information on legislative fly-in that we're setting up for June, just about a month from tomorrow. And then we have some legal challenges, some updates on those. There's been some movement there. I participated in a call this morning with the Ethical Toy Program. They did a survey of some of their factory members for how they're coping with the tariffs and some of the things that they're seeing. I want to share some data from that, and then open up for members Q&A at the end. Okay, so first is talking about our tariff trade agreements. Two things specifically about that. Earlier today, the president did announce, along with his counterpart in the UK, a broad agreement on a number of trade policies. Specifically, they're going to keep the 10% tariff in place on products coming in from the UK, but the UK is going to agree to allow more a variety of products into the United Kingdom with less tariffs or no tariffs on those. And so both sides seemed happy with the concepts they have. They don't actually have a deal in place yet. It's more of a concept of a plan for a deal. But they're going to continue negotiating. But they put out the broad strokes this morning regarding on UK products. And so again, it'll be a 10% tariff will be in place for products coming in from the United Kingdom and the United States. Probably reciprocal 10% going from U.S. products into the United Kingdom. And then some lowering some on specialized like automobiles, steel, a few products like that. They're going to reduce the tariffs from 25%. They are currently down to 10%. And so we'll hear more in the coming days about that. There's also been some reports of there'll be some announcements regarding India as well as Japan in the coming week. And so keep our ears open on that. But the most important one was probably the announcement that they've set a date to actually have talks with China and the U.S. The Treasury Secretary Bessent is traveling to Switzerland this weekend to meet with his counterparts from China to talk about the ongoing trade war and how they can use that.
Trump and China representatives are meeting on the 10th, like this Saturday in Switzerland to talk.
Is that a question, CJ?
So who the fuck knows what's gonna happen?
Okay, so I'm sorry, you have a question for us specifically, or is there somebody else in your room that you're talking to?
Well, I'm so sorry to know I was not muted.
Oh, no, it's no worries. I just want to see if you had a question to make sure a chance to answer it. No worries. But we're talking about as you did mention, there's been an announcement that the U.S. and the China counterparts will be meeting this Saturday in Switzerland to start negotiations regarding the tariffs. Hopefully, we'll give us some idea what's going to happen with that. Obviously, It's early days with that, but at least there is some movement. There's conversations happening finally after 5 weeks of this. So good to see that actually starting to move on that. Has anybody else had anything they've heard about any of the other tariff agreements or conversations that anybody else might have heard of? So moving on to the next item then we have here for the report this week. We are in the process of organizing a legislative fly-in to Washington, D.C. As you're aware, if you attended this last week, we were trying to support Senate Resolution 49 from Senator Wyden from Oregon, which did fail 49-49 in the U.S. Senate last week, which would have overturned, at least partially overturned the Trump's authority to unilaterally issue tariffs. Obviously, would have to pass the House and then be signed by the president, who threatened to veto it, of course. And so there's some legislative efforts on other bills. There's the Trade Review Act 2025, which is being heard, as well as a couple of bills that have been introduced. And so we're organizing in conjunction with the Toy Association a fly-in to DC on June 10th and 11th. We'll have an email going out tomorrow, I believe, to the members regarding what this will entail, who we're looking for to attend, and in some key legislative districts we're trying to coordinate to reach out to and meet with those people. I know I've had a couple conversations with a few food members this week regarding this event who've already volunteered either in the DC area or been very active on this issue. I just took a price shots this morning about it. His Seth LaFair, he's agreed to come fly in with us to be part of this fly-in. His consummate person has been ducking him, so I don't know if we're going to get a chance to meet with his office, but at least we're going to try. And so we're looking at about probably 6 to 8 people to be part of this fly-in. Obviously, more people who would like to come, that's great. But we want to keep it to a manageable number because most of these legislative offices are pretty small. I was there in DC in March, and if you get more than 5 people in office, it's pretty tight because this room is a premium at the Capitol. So if we have more than that, we'll put people into multiple teams. On the 10th, the Toy Association is doing a reception at the Rayburn office building around the Power of Play. And then they're doing their Hill visits on the 11th. We'll be doing ours on the 10th and the 11th. Just make sure we can accommodate enough of our members to be part of that. So there'll be a form to go out if you want to be part of that for more information. I do encourage you, if you're interested in doing that, please reach out and sign up for that so we can get people locked in, so we can start making calls to set up the appointments with the legislators. It does take several weeks to get on their schedules. And so the earlier people confirm that, the better. And so again, that'll be going out maybe later today, probably tomorrow morning to be realistic. I've got to get a few more things done on this before we finish the day up. This information will be going out shortly. I do encourage those who are able to join us in DC. I know at the moment it's myself and Nicole Brady, who's our board president, will be going. And a couple people who are in the DC area have also offered to come as well. So it's a good start. But obviously, the more members we can get engaged, the better. And then in addition to the fly-in, we're also going to be doing some outreach in local members' districts. We're working on members, key legislators and members that are in there. And so I'm kind of doing an analysis of about 20 legislators who are on the Key Ways and Means Committee, the Small Business Committee, the Trade Committee, see who are in those districts potentially. And then I'll reach out to those people to ask them if they want to be involved in either doing local calls or letters or visits to the local legislators' offices in their districts when they go on the break here shortly. So more information coming on that, but that's what's in the works. And we're very excited about this opportunity. Moving on. I'm sorry, any questions about the fly-in or what that would entail before I move on to that, to the next one?
Is there going to be an email or how would we sign up for that?
Yeah, so there'll be an email sign-up form that's going out to all the members. It'll explain kind of how the process works. Basically, we're going to be going in small groups. We're not just going to throw you and say, go talk to your legislator and here, good luck. We're going to do it in small groups so we can kind of support each other. We have talking points, and we're going to do some training beforehand, probably in early June, doing some training and going some Zoom calls like this, doing some like role playing, like how would you answer this question? How do you approach the legislator? How do you address them? That sort of thing. The prep for it. And then we on our end will be, people sign up, we'll be reaching out to their elected officials, districts to make the calls, set the appointments for them. And so that's basically the process of work. So again, that'll be going out probably today or tomorrow. Look for your emails for that and sign up, and we'll send you some more details after you sign up for that. So does that answer your question, Dan?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Cool. Legal challenges. There's been some movement on this front. As you're well aware, there's been a number of cases that have been filed, very small business, especially in our industry, against the Trump administration, challenging his authority under the IEEPA, the EPA, saying he doesn't really have the authority. It's never been used for this before. And so the first case that went out the box was the one out by the Liberty Justice Center. They filed that April 14th, and they have a hearing set for next week on May 13th in the U.S. Court of International Trade in New York City. They do civil actions regarding customs and international trade laws. And so they're making the argument that Trump has exceeded his authority under the law, and that the tariffs and trade and taxes are supposed to be under the authority of Congress, not the administration unilaterally. And we're going to pay attention to the hearing next week, but there's at least 4 other cases that are moving through the process, including the Stonemeyer case that I'm sure many of you are aware of. And then also 12 state attorney generals have also filed against the administration for exceeding their authority under the EPA law as well. And so once we have the hearing next week, we will I'll be monitoring that, and I'll be sending a notice out to members next week about how the arguments went, the questions that the judge had, and kind of next steps on that too. So again, we're monitoring the suits. We've actually reached out to several of the firms that are doing the suits. We've offered to support them to be part of the cases. We shared the survey we did 2 weeks ago for members about the economic impact of the tariffs with at least one of the firms who are using that in their case in their filing. So we are supportive of these challenges, and again, it's just another tack we're going to try to keep the pressure on the administration to overturn these tariffs. Up next, I attended a briefing earlier this week from the Ethical Supply Chain Program. So those of you might know is the Ethical Toy Program. Recently changed their name. They are a nonprofit which works with production facilities, be certified to make sure that they're using environmental governance, that they're treating the workers in a safe and ethical manner, and they have a rating sheet for all the factories that they partner with. They sent a survey out to their factories, asking them how they're being impacted by the tariffs and what they're seeing. And I kind of want to share some of this data with you. I spoke to them this morning about this, and they're actually going to give me a link tomorrow for the presentation, which will share with our members. And I'm also having a conversation with them about how our members can access their database of production facilities. So people are thinking about moving out of China into Vietnam or Indonesia. They can provide you a list of other factories and opportunities who deal in the toy industry and might be able to help support your business. So I'm meeting with them tomorrow about that. And so there'll be an email tomorrow afternoon with a link for their webinar, as well as how to access their programs and their database of factories. But in the interim, I want to share a couple of slides that they shared during their presentation with you. The first one up is this one. This was a broad view about where we are of the tariffs limits, knowing that there is a 90-day pause that will lapse in July on all these countries except for China, just to see what the level of tariffs that the president has imposed on them. And the reason they picked these countries is because these are countries, in addition to China, where a lot of companies are moving their production to as an alternative to China, whether that's Vietnam, Indonesia, India, and Mexico. And so they wanted to share those numbers from the toy industry perspective. And so that was very interesting to see the percentage of the tariffs to get kind of a feel for it. Obviously, China is the big one there at 145, but the ones are pretty steep too at 49% of Cambodia or 46% of Vietnam. And so until they come to either some kind of agreement to drop the tariffs across the board, or those countries have negotiate with the administration, like the UK is in the process of doing, even if the Chinese tariff is lifted somewhat or lowered somewhat, to be mindful of what the other impact might be in those other countries. But the sixth screen was the more interesting one, I think, which was from the survey they did, explaining how, what they're saying from the factories. And so if you look at some of these numbers here, it's interesting in that they're not seeing that a lot of companies are leaving the ethical toy program. They're staying involved with them. And they haven't actually started doing significant reduction of workers' hours yet. Some production is being maintained because it's very difficult to let workers go in China for some of the rules they have, and to try to stop production completely. So they're trying to do other projects with other countries, which could cause a problem later on if we're trying to get our products into those workflow processes that other producers in other countries from the U.S. taking up those available slots. Again, they're hopeful that they're hearing that there can be some kind of agreement announced today. We're early May now, and finally China and US are talking. So hopefully we'll hear something soon on that. But it's interesting that they're optimistic about that. So I need to move my screen here. There we go. Obviously, they expect some level of tariff, and the estimate rate that coming in was like 34%. I'm not sure where they're hearing that percentage number from. Obviously, it's a lot better than 145, but it's not really great from our members. Although the thing I hear is that we really want that certainty of what the level is. That we know the rules, we can play the game. So we'll see where the tariffs come in at on that. So that's kind of what the factories are telling them from China. And obviously, we know that people are warehousing space for hold orders. We've heard that from our members validating that. And this next one I think is important that, cash flow has been a problem for our members too, is they're not having products to sell. It's getting hard for them too, but the factories are also seeing that too. I'm sure they're sharing that with their government too. And then we talked about the factory growth outside of China, Vietnam, and Indonesia. On the previous screen, we saw that. So obviously, I think some of you might have seen on the social media that we're now seeing the first container ships that have reached the U.S. Since tariffs been imposed. There was one yesterday I saw we had a $34,000 tax bill for their product. So, I mean, people are going to start seeing the results soon of that when prices start going up, or they're going to have scarcity of finding items in their grocery stores and at their local stores. And I'm hoping we're keeping the pressure up to share with the media as well as for our members to share with their customers that, yeah, we're paying the bill, not China. It's the businesses that are being impacted to pass those charges along to you. So I'm kind of curious if you're having those conversations with your customers in your stores or with your publishing companies, and what kind of response you're getting from people when you talk to them about that. Would anyone like to share what they're experiencing or what they're hearing? Just checking something in the chat there. No, I don't see that either. Okay. Okay.
Dan Kaplan, I can just offer that in my conversations with folks who are identified as MAGA, they are streamed to be pushing an alternative idea that somehow the Fed is going to be responsible for the inflation that's going to occur. So you can start to see a shift where lots of different people who follow MAGA and essentially broadcast on MAGA have started to at least try and float the idea of blaming the inflation on the prices based on the fact that the Fed won't budge, which of course Trump was trying to make the Fed budge and lower interest rates throughout this whole period. And has talked about firing him. So, and I've seen very little traction. I sent you the letter I got back from my representative in my, and it was basically boilerplate, tariffs are good for business. And you saw the reply. But yeah, so far, I've had a few of those conversations, and at least where it seems like it would matter most, they're buckled down.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense from their point of view because they're trying to shift the blame on it because not take responsibility for not doing their job with their the constitutional oversight of tariffs as legislators and letting Trump to kind of dictate the narrative, trying to say here. But I think once people start seeing the impact at the stores or at their scarcity of getting products, they're going to start paying attention more because it's still kind of abstract because, again, we've just started seeing the tariffs going into effect now because the ships are starting to arrive. And if they're not arriving, so I hear about 50% drop in imports from China, it's going to happen sooner than later. And so I think we're seeing the pressure hopefully on the White House by having the meetings in Switzerland with China this weekend that they have to do something because I think this goes so much longer. It's going to be a lot louder, which it should be because this affects everybody, and it's definitely not the Feds. They're not the reason why the prices are going to go up. It's just not going to be the case. So I'm glad to see people are pushing back on that a little bit. So thanks, Dan, for sharing that.
Sure.
Let's see. Check the chat. Sorry. Okay, cool. Let's make sure I didn't miss anything. So yeah, chat noise there. All right. So moving on to the next slide here. Again, it's Q&A. And so that was the main presentation that I had. So I want to see if anybody had anything else they wanted to share. Obviously, once we get some more information next week, we'll learn more about how the talks go on Saturday in Switzerland, the hearing in the court on the 13th of next week. We'll have more information at next week's briefing, which will be the board meeting. Just know that we're not doing this kind of call next week, but we'll be doing a summer chat during the board meeting next week, which is at 3 o'clock Eastern instead of 4:30 like this is. But if he wants to ask specific questions, anything he wants to look into for next week, I can get answers to or try to. I'm happy to do that. So this is your time. I appreciate y'all coming out today. But if you want to make sure you get a chance, if you want to have questions, you could ask them. So my screen share here.
Hey, this is Dan Kaplan again. I'll just offer that in the last hour, the New York Post published a new article saying that insiders are saying that the new range will be 50 to 54% for Chinese tariffs, and that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has been saying this week that the triple digits, the 145%, isn't sustainable. They also mentioned that they've done that low start campaign. You mentioned 50%. Apparently, they've been saying the ships are at 54%. And they also mentioned that all other Asian countries look like they're going to be targeted at 25%. And that literally came out, I guess, an hour and 15 minutes ago. I put the link in the chat.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. I haven't seen that yet. Look at
Yeah,
that.
when we started the meeting, I thought, well, let me just take a look and see if anything's popped up.
I mean, even a 50% tariff is not great on businesses. So, okay, I see it there. Cool.
That was very moderately put.
Moderately put, yes. Yeah, fair. So, and I'm curious where they're getting the 34% number, the Chinese factories. And so, I mean, maybe the number is somewhere between there, but still, that's very hard in our industry because given how tight the margins are to figure out for sure.
Yeah, I can tell you that we had another supplier who went into business. We were talking with them, and their goods are stuck with the fulfillment agent. So I haven't seen a ton of people closing. I think it's basically folks who are already on the line, right? That's really the things we've seen so far. But I definitely hear you and want to hear John that I think the empty shelves somewhere between 2 and 6 weeks from now are going to be a huge eye opener for the public.
Yeah. Which I mean, timing wise, that puts us like right before our visit to DC, right after our visit to DC, right? And so I'm hoping is the wrong word. I'm thinking that they're just going to be hearing from their constituents when they can't buy things they want to buy. And I know the comment I was talking, they were kind of about how tough it was to find things during COVID. Um, there are things to sell, we just can't bring them in the country, and that's a harder argument to make to people. Oh, I can't bring this to you because you can't afford to buy it, I can't afford to sell it to you. It's actually there, but if the president would reduce his tariffs or get rid of them, I can sell this to you. And that's a hard position for the administration to have to defend. So we'll have to see how he tries to. So would else like to comment or question anything?
What messaging are we doing with non-toy and game initiatives, other organizations?
Yeah, great. Thank you for asking. So yeah, I've been meeting with a number of other organizations. We're part of a coalition of about 200 associations that's being kind of spearheaded by the National Retailer Association. They brought us together 4 years ago during the first Trump administration, and we're still kind of loosely been together. We've been working with them on messaging regarding hitting consumers again about the scarcity of items, the price going up. Here's the reason why it's going up, explaining how the economics work. We've been doing a lot of work on that. I've had a number of interviews this week. I had one yesterday with CNET. We were talking about obviously our industry specifically, but they were citing other industries that they were looking at. Obviously, there's been some kind of a carve out for some technology who are, friends with the administration. But a lot of other companies are also in the same boat we are. And the comment he made to me is, so what happens when we're past this, we find a level of tariffs that companies feel comfortable enough to work with again. What's going to happen with demand to get your products made and get them actually shipped over? And I said, we don't know because of the issues we had during COVID regarding shipping containers, and just because of that, we see that happening again. And so even though if these might get lifted in the next few weeks, we're still going to putting Q4 at risk and actually getting products in time to sell in the stores or for the publishers to sell to their customers. And so there's a lot of unknowns right now, and that's the message we've been sharing to people. It's really hard as a business to make any kind of decisions if you don't know what the playing field is. And so that's the kind of message we've been talking with the other associations about. Thank you, Nicole, for the question. Well, again, I'll wrap this up because we've been averaging about 20 minutes on these calls, which is we're kind of on that point right now. But I want to make sure that we just did the highlights, what's happening this week, and give you a chance to ask questions. Again, look for on your mailboxes for information regarding the legislative fly-in a few weeks, as well as we'll do an update next week once we have the hearing on the 13th, and a little bit more what happens in Switzerland this weekend. So I hope you all have a good day, and thank you for taking the time out to be part of this. Again, this will be posted tomorrow on GAMA's Resource Hub, as well as available on our YouTube channel. And thank you, and talk to you all soon.
Thanks.